Today, I want to talk to you about a problem that you're going to face if you're using Microsoft Power BI and deploying it out using an organizational app. And that is that there's no clear way to end users to see when the last time the report refreshed was. So let's jump into Power BI and let's take a look and let me show you the problem. So here is an organizational app that is in my essentially dev workspace that I use. And as you can see, I've got a couple of different audiences here. And this is literally just a blank report that I've uploaded. But there's no clear way to an end user to actually see when this report refreshed was, right? If you were in the data model, you could roll over and you could see a refresh time. If you are relatively unfamiliar with Power BI and you just get given this organizational app and say, hey, here's my company's data, you will not see a refresh time. And so you will not know when the last time that this report updated was. Now, the way people have gotten around this, and here is a Microsoft sample, right, is they have put the refresh a date and time in the report. So for example, right here, right at the very top of this sample report from Microsoft, it says the last time that this data was refreshed. Now, doing this works well, but it comes with some interesting challenges, in particular around time zone and daylight versus standard time zone. So let's talk about that. You see, the most common way of getting a time into a Power BI report or Power BI refresh report is to embed it in Power Query. So that way, when the Power BI report refreshes, it refreshes the time into a local table in Power Query, and you get the date and time. So if we go into Advanced Editor, right, Power Query has this function that returns in date time zone UTC now. And it's important that it's in UTC because if you think about this, Power BI servers are all over the world, your data servers are all over the world. You want to return UTC time because otherwise you'd be getting the time back that the server was located at in the country. Now, you can then do this and you can then bring this into Power BI, right? Or in Power Query, and you can then essentially adjust that. All right, so here I believe is that table, and you can adjust that into the time zone. So if we go and we look at this, right, here it is in UTC time, the current date time in UTC time. I'm in Pacific Standard Time zones, so I would want to go ahead and convert this UTC time zone into PST. Now, the way I would do this is with an hour offset, right? So I would say, hey, PST at this given point in time is 7 hours ahead or 8 hours behind, right? And I would essentially add that time to this timestamp. The problem is PST experiences daylight savings time. So that offset changes throughout the year. Now, I can go ahead and I can try to manage that change through DAX and manual updates, or I can do a couple of different things. The first thing that I can do, depending on my server, is I can query the time out of the server into Power Query. So for example, I've worked quite a bit with Databricks. In Databricks, you can request the time in a specific time zone. So I can say, hey, return me the time in PST, and it will return me the date and time. That would be probably the easiest solution that you could do. The more technical solution, and perhaps the more creative one, is you could have your DBA store a series of offsets, right, for all of the current time zones from UTC into that, and then you could store the time zone of your user, right, in a table, and you could then use DAX to essentially look up the time zone of the user and then add that offset to the UTC time. So that way, whenever the user looks at the report and sees the refresh time, they see that refresh time in their actual time zone. Isn't that cool? So let me know down in the comments if you've ever encountered this problem, and if you have, how did you solve it? And if you're interested in more Power BI or SQL content, by the way, quick shout out, I'm currently teaching a Learn SQL for Free video series here on YouTube that I'm actively in the middle of, that I'll link the playlist for down below in the video description. Please consider subscribing and liking this video. I put a lot of effort into these, even though the production quality might not quite be up to snuff, and you following and liking the videos lets me know that not all that time's for waste. So that, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good night.